Hello, this is Zach. Right now we're going to learn HTML, which is the basics for creating web pages. Now I'm on the W3 Schools webpage. This is a great resource for HTML introductions and more advanced stuff. So the basics of HTML is that HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's used for telling your browser how a web page should look and what should be on it. So hypertext markup language means that the pages can link to each other, and it's a markup language, which means that HTML marks up the page and the content to tell your browser how it looks. Now HTML is made with a bunch of tags, and we're going to see what tags look like, but tags surround the content in order to tell your browser what each piece of content should look like and what it means. So the basics of HTML is it's used for web pages. So we're going to create a basic web page now that has a header and a paragraph. So you can edit it in any text editor. You can use Notepad if you're on Windows or whatever you like. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a basic tag called the HTML tag. This is going to be used for every project you create. The HTML tag simply tells the browser that everything between the start and the end tag are part of HTML. Now in HTML, all the tags have the brackets surrounding the tag name. So this is a HTML tag. And almost all the tags have an end tag. And you'll see the end tag looks exactly the same, except it has a slash in front. Now what this means is that everything between the start tag and the end tag of that same type are marked up by that tag. So in other words, everything between the start HTML tag and the end HTML tag is going to be considered HTML. So this one, you're not going to see any difference. You're just going to use it, and it's going to be used for every page. Now we're also going to add a head tag. A head tag has information in between that describes the page. Now again, you don't really see this in the page, but it's used for something like the title. So we're going to add a title tag. And this will be the page title that you see at the top of the page. We're going to give it a simple title. Now you'll see that head has an end tag and title has an end tag. And everything between is marked up by that tag. Next we're going to add the body tag. And we'll end it right away. And everything we put in between the start body tag and the end body tag will be considered part of the body. Okay, so what do we want in the body? We just want a big header that says this is a header. So to do a header in HTML, you use the H1 tag. All right, there's a bunch of different header sizes. H1 is the biggest, and it goes down to H6. So we're going to type some text there, and we're going to end the tag. So now everything between the H1 start tag and the H1 end tag is going to be marked up as a header. So let's see what this looks like now. This is a file called HTML, hello.html. We're going to save it. And now we'll go find the file and click on it to open it. Here's hello.html. Okay, so this just opened the page in the browser. You'll see what the title is. The title's hello. That was marked up by the title tag. And you'll see in big font, this is a header. And that was marked up by the H1 tag, which makes it big. Now we're going to go back to our document, and now we're going to add a paragraph. A paragraph is surrounded by the P tag. P is for paragraph. We're just going to type, this is a paragraph, and we'll end it. So now everything between the start paragraph tag and the end paragraph tag is part of the paragraph. Now again, we're going to save this file. We're going to go back to the browser and refresh. Now you'll see our header's still there, but there's also a paragraph, which is much smaller text. Now that's the basics of HTML. Believe it or not, that's pretty much how HTML works. The only thing you need to get used to is all the other tags. Each tag does something different and looks a little bit different. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a little more of an advanced page. We're going to create an online resume page. All right, so we'll take a look at what this resume is going to look like. All right, here's an example of the final result. It'll simply have our name, a description about us, our objective, a picture, and some experience. So let's get to work on the resume page. Now to start, we're going to just keep it in the hello.html. We're going to clear this out. and we're going to start over with a new page. Now we always wrap it in HTML. We have a start and end HTML tag. We're going to have a head tag and a title. And we're going to give our page a title. That's what will show up at the top of the page. Now we're going to add a body, and that's what we'll actually see in the page. Everything that we want to see rendered by the browser will be inside these body tags. Okay, now let's look at what we have so far. We have the start HTML. At the bottom we have the end HTML. Everything in between those tags are considered part of the HTML. Here we have a start head tag and an end head tag. Everything in between is part of the head, and the title tag contains the title of our page. Now you'll see I indented for each tag. You don't need to indent. Whether I indent or not, the page will look exactly the same. I use indenting to make it a little easier to keep track of which tags are in which other tags. Now this page won't show anything yet. It'll have a title at the very top in the tab, but we don't have anything in the body. So let's add the body now. We're going to put our name in big text. Now it's a good practice to check your work often, to see how it's looking and to figure out where the bugs occur before you get too far. So we're going to see what this looks like. I'm simply going to save this, double click on the file to open it, and here's what our page looks like. Pretty simple. Okay, so let's keep going on this. The next thing we're going to do is add some text about who we are. Okay, now that I typed some text, I'm going to save it and I'm going to refresh. Remember, we want to check our work often. Okay, here we go. Now we see the paragraph about us. Now the next thing I want to do is add a picture. Now to add a picture, you need to know what picture you're going to add. So I'm going to go out on the web and find a picture. I'm going to search for my name, go to Images, and I'll use this one. Now I'm going to right click and copy the image location. Now I'm going to go back to the page, and to show a picture you need to use the image tag. The image tag is img for image. Now the image tag is a little different from what we've seen so far because it has what's called an attribute. An attribute goes within the tag and gives the tag a little more information. Now the image tag has an attribute called source. You'll see I put source, src, equals, and then in quotes, I put the full URL to the image. That tells the image tag what image you want to show. Now the image tag, unlike h1 and body and HTML, doesn't need an end tag. It's just a single opening tag. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save, and we're going to go back and refresh the page and see how it looks. Now you'll see the image is on the page, but it sits at the very end of my text. I want it on the next line. So to do that, I'm going to tell it to have a line break. Now to add a line break, you need to use the BR tag for break. I'll save this, and now my image is on the next line. Now if I want a little more space, I can add another line break. Now it doesn't matter how I format this, if I have it on a new line or if I have it right next to each other, it's going to look the same. Now it's on a new line. Now I can add additional attributes to the image tag. So suppose I want my image to be a little bit bigger. I can specify a width or a height. I'm going to use a height. I'm going to say height equals 300 pixels. Pixels is in quotes. And I'm going to save. And now you'll see my image is bigger. Now the next thing we want to do is add an objective. Now I want my objective to go on to the next line, and I want a little space in between, so I'm going to add two more line breaks, BR, BR. Now again, the line break doesn't have a start and an end, it's just a BR tag. Now you want to check your work often, so we'll come back and see how it looks. Now you'll see my objective. The next thing we're going to do is list our experience. Now I want the experience to stand out a little bit as a header. I don't want it to stand out as much as my name, but I still want it to be big. Now remember, H1 is the largest header, but there's also H2, H3, all the way to H6. Each one is a little smaller than the last. I'm going to use an H2. And I'm going to close it here. Everything between the start H2 and the end H2 is marked up to be a header size 2, which is going to be the word experience. Here you can see how that looks. And now I want to add a list of my experience. Now to do a list, in this case I want to use an unordered list, which means that there'll be bullets, not numbers, for each item. An ordered list with numbers would be OL for the tag. And I'm going to end it, and everything in between is going to be part of the list. Now for every bullet, you use an LI tag, or list item. So I'm going to add a little bit of my experience. I'm going to end each list item with the end LI tag. And I have another LI and one more LI. Actually, we'll do one more. Okay, so now we have an unordered list with 4 list items inside. Let's take a look at how that will appear. Now you'll see each one is a bullet because it's an unordered list and they're all each on its own line. Now what if I want to add a link? What if when you click on my site, I want you to actually go to my website? Well, that's very easy to do in HTML. You simply need to find the website. I'm going to go to my site. Here we go. I'm going to copy the link. Now, what part do I want to actually click? What part do I want to be the link? I just want the name, Funeral Innovations, to be the link. Now, to use a link, you use the A tag, which is for anchor. So the anchor tag, which is a link, also uses an attribute because you need to tell it where the link should go. So the attribute for where the link should go is called href, for hypertext reference. We'll say href equals, and in quotes, I'm going to paste where I want it to go if they click on that link. Then I'm going to close the A tag, and then after the words that I want you to be able to click on, I'm going to end it. So everything between the start A tag for link and the end A tag is going to be the clickable part of the link. So I'm going to save, and let's see how that looks. Now you'll see that Funeral Innovations, my company, has been turned into a link. If I click the words Funeral Innovations, it goes to my page. We'll add one more link. And there you go. So that concludes the first lesson on HTML. Using this, you know what HTML is. You know that HTML is used to create web pages. It has the content of the page and describes how the content should be rendered by the web browser. HTML consists of tags. Most tags have an open and a close. Everything between the open and close for a particular tag is marked up by that tag. And you can create HTML in any text editor. You just name the files anything you want, .html. You save it, and then you open it in your browser to see how it looks. So that concludes the first lesson. In the next lesson, we'll learn how to add some more advanced tags.